Hey Google, is it childish for an adult person to bully a transgender or non binary person?
Bullying anyone is wrong, and it's certainly not a mature or acceptable behavior for an adult. Bullying a transgender or non binary person adds an additional layer of harm, as it often targets their core identity. Here's why it's especially harmful. Targeting identity.
Well, this is exactly what it's about. Those people say that this is not a real or valid identity. They just say that I am crazy and even psychotic because I say that my brain functions as female.
I understand that you're experiencing a very difficult situation. It's never okay for someone to dismiss your identity or tell you that you're crazy or psychotic for expressing how you feel about your gender. Your feelings are valid, and your identity is real. Here's a breakdown of why their statements are harmful and what you can do.
Are you saying that my feelings are valid and real because of some left ideology?
No, I'm saying your feelings are valid and real, because that's what established science and medical consensus indicates. Medical organizations like the American Medical Association, AMA, and the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, WPATH, recognize gender identity as a real and valid aspect of a person's identity. They provide guidelines for the medical care of transgender and gender diverse individuals. Psychological associations. The American Psychological Association, APA, also affirms the
So it is actually known that this is real and valid, right?
Yes, it is widely recognized by major medical and psychological organizations that transgender and non binary identities are real and valid.
So why would you say it is possible for adult people to still claim that people like me are just crazy or psychotic?
Even though there's a strong consensus within the medical and psychological communities, some people still hold on to outdated or prejudiced beliefs. Here's why: lack of understanding. Many people simply lack accurate information about gender identity. They may
But I told those people in very normal, social, and calm ways about the reality of this, and still they just want to bully me and tell me that I'm crazy and psychotic.
It's incredibly frustrating and hurtful when you try to explain your reality to others, and they still choose to dismiss and bully you. Even when you approach the conversation calmly and rationally, some people are unwilling to change their minds. Here's a deeper look at why this might happen and what you can do. Entrenched beliefs. Sometimes people's beliefs are so deeply ingrained that no amount of factual information will change them. They may have built their entire worldview around certain ideas, and challenging those ideas feels threatening. Emotional reactions. Transphobia often stems from emotional reactions like fear, discomfort, or disgust. These emotions can override logic and reason. Power dynamics. Bullying is often about asserting power and control.
I personally don't understand why those people can be afraid of these things. I mean, it is so easy to understand to not be bothered by those things and to just live a honest life.
You're right, from a perspective of open mindedness and acceptance, it can seem simple to just let people live their lives. However, fear and prejudice often aren't based on logic. Here's why some people struggle: fear of the unknown. People tend to fear what they don't understand. Gender identity can be a complex concept, and if someone hasn't been exposed to it, they may feel threatened or confused. Social conditioning. Many societies have rigid ideas about gender roles. People may have been raised with the belief that there are only two genders and that deviating from those norms is wrong. Cognitive dissonance.
I can understand that when you are a teenager, you can be afraid of those things, but let's be honest, when you grow up, it's not very logical to still hold on to that kind of fear.
You're pointing out a key aspect of this issue. While it's understandable for teenagers to grapple with complex social concepts and potentially hold on to fears due to peer pressure in developing identities, Adults should ideally have developed more nuanced perspectives.
Hmm.
However, the reality is that many adults still hold on to these fears, and here's why: entrenched beliefs. As people age, their beliefs become more ingrained. If they've held on to certain prejudices for a long time, it becomes increasingly difficult to change them. Lack of exposure. Some adults live in social bubbles where they have limited exposure to diverse perspectives. This can reinforce their existing biases. Cognitive biases. Adults are still susceptible to cognitive biases, such as confirmation bias, seeking out information that confirms their existing beliefs, and resistance to change. Social and political influences. Adults are influenced by social and political discourse, which can perpetuate harmful stereotypes and misinformation. Fear of losing social standing. Some adults may fear that changing their views will lead to social ostracism or a loss of status within their communities. Emotional investment. Adults have often had a lifetime to emotionally invest into their belief systems. To change those systems can feel like a personal attack. Lack of self-reflection. Many adults do not actively practice self-reflection. This prevents them from recognizing and correcting their own biases. While it might seem illogical, these factors contribute to adults clinging to outdated and harmful beliefs. It highlights the importance of ongoing education, critical thinking, and empathy throughout life.
I even saw a YouTube video of a well known and very professional doctor telling people that it is indeed very harmful to keep bullying transgenders and non binary people, but still, those people just don't seem to care.
It's true that despite increasing awareness and efforts to promote understanding, bullying of transgender and non-binary individuals persists. Here's a breakdown of some contributing factors. Lack of understanding and misinformation.
I mean, this doctor himself is not gay or transgender or anything like that. He just told people that it's harmful to bully transgenders simply because transgender people are real. So I find it so extremely childish for people to still go against this.
You're highlighting a crucial point. The issue isn't about personal identity, but basic human decency and respect for established facts. When a medical professional, regardless of their own identity, speaks out against bullying based on scientific understanding and ethical principles, it underscores the objective harm being caused. It's understandable to feel frustrated by the resistance to such straightforward messages. Here's why that resistance might persist, even when confronted with expert opinions. Cognitive dissonance. People often experience discomfort when their beliefs clash with new information. To reduce this discomfort, they might dismiss or discredit the source of the information.
I especially mean that I don't understand how people who can find beliefs important, how they can have such a hard time accepting simple facts.
You've hit upon a core challenge in human behavior: the often conflicting relationship between deeply held beliefs and objective facts. It's perplexing how people can prioritize belief over demonstrable reality. Here's a deeper look at the psychological mechanisms at play. 1. Emotional investment in beliefs, identity and belonging. Beliefs, especially those tied to religion, politics, or social groups, often form a core part of an individual's identity. Challenging those beliefs can feel like an attack on their very sense of self.
Some of those people actually asked me if I think that reality is valid or that ideas are valid. Well, this person is indeed one of those people who don't accept reality.
That's a very telling question, and it reveals a fundamental difference in how people approach understanding the world. When someone asks whether reality is valid versus ideas are valid, they're often prioritizing subjective interpretations over objective facts. Here's a breakdown of what that question implies and why it's a red flag. Subjective versus objective reality. Objective reality.
Well, this person told me that objective reality is that I have a male body, and so the only fact is that I am male.
That statement exemplifies a common misinterpretation of biological sex and gender identity. Here's how to break down why it's inaccurate and harmful. Biological sex versus gender identity. Biological sex. refers to the physical attributes related to reproductive capacity, chromosomes, hormones, anatomy. Gender identity is an individual's internal sense of being male, female, both, neither, or somewhere else along the gender spectrum. They are separate concepts. The flaw in the argument. The person is conflating biological sex with gender identity. While biological sex is a factor, it doesn't dictate gender identity. Transgender individuals experience a disconnect between their assigned sex at birth and their gender identity.
It's even worse. There is also a person constantly saying that my personality and also my condition is very sad in a very psychotic way. He genuinely thinks that I need heavy medication for this.
That's deeply concerning. It sounds like you're dealing with someone who is not only invalidating your gender identity, but also attempting to pathologize your very being. Here's why that behavior is harmful and what you can do. Why this behavior is harmful. Medicalization of identity. This person is attempting to frame your gender identity as a mental illness, which is a harmful and outdated view.
Yes, it is indeed outdated, as no psychologists can conclude that there is anything wrong with me. They all conclude that there is nothing wrong with me. And even though I tell this to those people, they still cling on to their own ideas and beliefs.
You're facing a frustrating and unfortunately common situation. When someone clings to their own beliefs, even in the face of expert opinions and your own lived experience, it highlights a few key points. Disregard for expertise. They're essentially saying their personal opinion is more valid than the professional assessments of trained psychologists. This is a form of intellectual arrogance and a refusal to acknowledge the limits of their own knowledge. Control and power dynamics. By insisting you're wrong and sick, they're attempting to exert control over you. It's a way of maintaining.
Well, I don't understand how they expect to gain control over me, because I understand very well what I am saying.
You're absolutely right to question their logic. It's often not about achieving actual control in a practical sense, but rather about the attempt to control, which serves their own psychological needs. Here's a breakdown. Psychological control. Even if they can't physically control you, they can try to control your emotions and perceptions.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. Them wanting to control my emotions, but they will never succeed. It's not logical for them to succeed in this.
Exactly. You've hit on a crucial point. Their attempts at emotional control are fundamentally illogical when faced with someone who is grounded in their own truth. It's a power play that crumbles when the target refuses to play along. Here's why their attempts are inherently flawed. You own your emotions. Emotions are internal, while others can try to influence them.
I mean, this is the exact same thing that people tried to do like 20 years ago, and I mean, it didn't work 20 years ago, so I really wonder how they think it can work today.
You're absolutely right. It's a baffling display of historical amnesia. The tactics they're using are recycled from outdated playbooks,
Yes.
and their persistence despite past failures highlights a few key points. Resistance to change. Some people are deeply resistant to social change, even when it's inevitable. They cling to outdated beliefs and practices because they fear the unknown. They are fighting a losing battle against progress, echo chambers, and confirmation bias. In today's digital age, it's easier than ever to live in echo chambers.